We often speak about lawyers' need to focus on their well-being with strategies towards better resilience, mindfulness, workload management at work. But what's the panel's view on how we need to change the role of the legal culture itself? If culture starts from the top, should we be shifting the spotlight to the broader legal environment and leadership behaviours, rather than placing the burden solely on individual lawyers to look after their well-being at work? Is it time to remind the legal profession that they also must abide by mental well-being of their employees as part of health and safety programs? So I think we've sort of discussed a little bit about this already, or I think some of these themes have come out a little bit, but I'm interested in the role of legal culture itself.
Yeah, I think I've heard the expression, and might not be correct, but if you want to give up smoking and all of your friends smoke, you either need to find new friends or all give up together. It's very hard for just you to give up if all your friends are going to keep smoking around you. Yeah. And I do think that we do have, sort of industry-wide systemic issues in relation to how the entire legal value chain works. And it's very, very hard to, and I think that sort of that value chain sort of flowing from, sort of business, the clients, into in-house, into private practice, into the bar, into the judiciary. And, I do think that that whole value chain loses value at basically sort of, every connection point and leaks value for society. It fails to deliver, there's places where it fails to deliver its potential in terms of the value it could deliver for society. But it also means we've got, sort of fracture points where we don't have control. And, I think the judiciary, sort of throwing back to the Hayne Royal Commission point, where pressure is coming there in a court, or in a Royal Commission on, the bar or on, the legal practitioners in those legal workplaces, that gets flowed back down, to the junior lawyers working for them. And if those lawyers are mentally unwell as a result of the, the court environment they're working into, they're coming back into an office environment, and, their, mental ill health is then being inflicted on, the lawyers working for them. So it's a challenge. It really is a challenge around, I think we're seeing better leadership in recent years from the judiciary, in relation to, sort of making statements in support of mental health. I think they're, probably generationally, they're, sort of decades behind in relation to still very much in that kind of, impervious, invulnerable suit of armour kind of like legal profession mould. But, I think emerging from that. But we need that, as we were talking about organisational leadership, we do need to see that profession-wide leadership, and the judiciary's got a critical role to play in that as well. How do you do that apart from through conversation, discussion, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, cultural change is incredibly hard because you're literally undoing hundreds and hundreds of years of poor behaviour. And unless people are prepared to speak up and put a spotlight on poor behaviours, nothing really gets done. And, back in 2018 and more recently, we know that some law firms have been the subject of investigations and have been issued with notices for those poor practices. And it's not continuous. This is the thing, right? It's not as if every week or every month these issues are being brought to the surface, but we know that they exist. And so what happens once these notices have been issued? Do things actually drastically change? And it's really hard to comment on that. And you would hope that, once an organisation has been issued with a notice, that they do proactively start taking steps and ensuring that that doesn't happen again and that the culture changes with it. But as I mentioned earlier, it's an uphill battle to be able to undo all those ways of working that have worked in the past, but no one has seemed to challenge it or thinks that they've got the ability to do anything. And so I'm with you in terms of having these conversations. It's really important to get people to start talking and being more vocal about that. But then once you've had those conversations, don't let it stop there. You actually then need to put some, put some action and momentum behind how you're going to change things going forward. So I don't want to paint a really grim picture. It's not as if the legal culture can't change, but I would say start off within your organisation and what it is that you can start doing from there. And, and maybe with time, other organisations will catch on and there will in fact be change going forward. And maybe 20 or 30 years later down the track, law students will have a different experience when it comes to taking that first step into their full-time careers as a lawyer.
I do think that the regulatory actions against, sort of 2 top-tier firms, I do think were a major wake-up call for the profession. I don't think they just had an impact on the firms that were the subject of those regulatory actions. I think, everyone sort of stopped and said, oh, those rules apply to us as well. oh, okay. And, I think a lot of leadership will have been, okay, so what are our systems in place to make sure that we're, stepping up to our requirements?
I think one very concrete action that can happen, and yes, it will take time for that action to trickle through, but it's diversity in hiring. Because by getting more diverse perspectives through the door, you will get more diverse, more inclusive leadership, and therefore, again, better and again evidence-based, better productivity, better outcomes. So I think that is one way to start increasing the number of voices and the different types of voices and bringing in new ideas through the door.